Good morning, everybody. I'm Wendy Custer. I'm the Vice President of Member Relations here at the Chamber of Commerce. And I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Univest Financial and Merck Sharp and Dome Federal Credit Union. And I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Karyn Greenstreet of the Success Alliance. Karyn, take it away.
Great. Thanks so much. So today we're going to be talking about mastermind groups and how you can use them both for professional development as well as personal development. My name is Karyn Greenstreet. As Wendy said, I am the owner of the Success Alliance. I'm also a small business consultant, and I've been teaching people how to create and run mastermind groups for probably 20 years or so. I've been in mastermind groups and running them myself for close to 30 years. So I have lots of great information to share with you today, and I can't wait to get started. So I want you to be wearing two hats. So we're going to talk about what a mastermind group is. We're going to talk about if you're looking to join a group, what to look for, where you can find a mastermind group. And then if you say, I can't find one that I like, how do I start one of my own? I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to get started. But I want you to be kind of wearing two hats as you're listening to the conversation today. The first one is if you want to be a member of a group. And so what are you looking for in a group? What makes a good group? How are you going to get your needs met? How are you going to make sure that the group helps you to be successful? And then on the other hand, you might think, well, I actually want to gather a group together myself. I want to start my own group. And what do you need to make a group successful? And what kind of people are you looking for? It's the same questions, right, on either side of it. So I would not be as successful as I am today without my participation in a mastermind group. So I'm hoping that I can share with you some ideas that would get you started. So the first thing we need to ask is, what is a mastermind group? And a mastermind group, we like to call it a personal board of directors, right? It is your group of people that help you to solve problems, help you to set goals, help you to share knowledge with each other, to share best practices, to really shorten the learning curve, and to get that support you need if you're trying to create success in your life. And the cool thing about a mastermind group is it's the word success, to create success in your life. It's defined by each individual member. Each person gets to say what's important to them. So let's say you're working inside of a corporation or organization. Your idea of professional success might be different than the person sitting next to you. Say that you own a business. Your idea of success might be different than someone sitting next to you. And so we want to make sure that the idea of a mastermind group is there's not like everybody in the group shares the exact same goal. They can actually all have slightly different goals. Usually it's a mastermind group around a particular topic. So you might have a mastermind group for mid-level managers. You might have mastermind group for small business owners or restaurant owners, and really narrow it down. But there's also mastermind groups around personal development. You can have financial mastermind groups. You can have fitness and health mastermind groups. And so people are using them all over the place. But imagine like a mastermind group that's about health and fitness. Each person there has different health goals and different fitness goals. Say you have a mastermind group around financial planning and financial health, as it were. Everyone's going to have different financial goals that they're trying to achieve. The point of it is that all these folks come together to brainstorm with each other and to share with each other what they know and creative solutions for when you get stuck on your road to success, right? If you've ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he talks about this concept of a mastermind alliance, which is really the same thing as a mastermind group. When he was writing Think and Grow Rich, which is back in like the 1920s or 1930s, he interviewed about 500 successful professionals, successful inventors, successful civic leaders like mayors and governors. And he was basically asking them, how did you get to be successful? And nearly every one of them said, I surrounded myself with people who could help and support me. I didn't do it alone. And it wasn't just that I surrounded myself with employees or things. I surrounded myself with a group of peers who I could bounce ideas off. They could be a sounding board for me. I could just talk through my ideas and they would tell me, does that make sense? Am I missing anything? Is there something I haven't thought of that they can think of because they have experience that I don't have? And so in his book, he's talking about you need to gather this kind of group around you as well, because you want to have this group of people help you with everything from making better decisions as you're moving forward to whatever your goal is, down to keeping up like a positive attitude. And this group of people are there to support you and encourage you, to applaud you when you have created a success, a win, and they understand it because they've been with you on that path. They're also there to support you when things go rough and you need some help. They're like, okay, we understand this. Let's see if we can get you past this stuck place. So in a mastermind group, usually it's relatively small. 10 to 12 people would kind of be the max. And the idea is that you're going to meet consistently. So have you ever had that experience where you sit around with a group of friends or a group of colleagues, you're having a coffee, and someone brings up a problem they're having, and everybody jumps in with all these different ideas, and it seems like the ideas feed off each other, and the ideas get more and more creative and more deep, and the conversation goes deeper. So a mastermind group is like that, except that they meet consistently. So it's not a one-time coffee and then you never see them again. It's, we'll meet once a month, or we'll meet every other week, or we'll meet once a quarter, so that they can track their progress and they can get help when they need it. I mean, if you're only going to meet once a quarter, what if you have a problem in between time? Can you communicate with your group? And so if you're looking to be in a group, you want to look for a group that meets often enough that when you have a problem or a question or you need to make a decision, that they're there for you. I think one of the things that's really important about a mastermind group as well is this goal setting and the accountability. So the idea is that if you're trying to create success in your life, if you are trying to make a change, there's got to be one thing in your life you're trying to change, that you're working on, whether it's in your professional life or your personal life. And what you want to be looking for is a group that's going to support you not only with ideas, but also with action. Because if you create an action plan and you don't do anything, then of course you're not going to be successful. You're not going to make that change. You're not going to hit that goal. So a group that holds you accountable for getting things done is just as important as a group that helps you solve problems. So the idea here is when I was in a mastermind group, maybe about 20 years ago or so, one of the members came up and they said, how do I find new clients? And by asking a lot of deep questions of her about what she was looking for, what she had already done, what kind of clients were the best for her, we could then help her figure out how to get in front of those people. So they can bring a pretty large topic to the mastermind group meeting, and then everyone can brainstorm around that. And it's lovely because then when you have a goal, like in this case, finding new clients, the group focuses on you. There's a thing in a mastermind group called a hot seat. And the idea of a hot seat is one person gets to be the person who everyone is paying attention to. So Mary gets to be in the hot seat. She says, how do I find new clients? And we spend 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes working just on her problem and going really deep with it to try to give her some very actionable items and some really creative ideas and different ways of thinking about it. And also, of course, to look at any mindset things. Well, maybe she's having a hard time finding clients because there's something inside of her that's keeping her stuck. Maybe it's not about her marketing. Maybe it's about her thinking or her attitude or her beliefs about what's possible. Maybe that's a place where she's stuck. And so a mastermind group is going to work on both sides with you. So it's for both personal development as well as professional development, because as you know, whenever you're trying to create something in life, you have to work on the inner self as well as you need to work on the practicalities. So there's 11 different benefits that I find with mastermind groups. First of all, that you're going to get feedback, and not just feedback, oh yeah, that's a good idea, but really deep, insightful feedback about your ideas and what's going on in your world. And that just really, it can be very surprising what it will uncover for you when you're trying to really understand the true nature of what's going on in your world, is by having another group of people say, well, I notice every time you come to the meeting, you say this, what does that mean? And all of a sudden you have like an aha moment, so that kind of feedback I think is important. the brainstorming, the leveraging of the group's ability to get new and better ideas, to the creativity that the group brings really can help you get outside your box. Because, you know, when we're thinking about things, we have a very particular way of focusing our own attention, our own creativity, but we might be missing things. And by having another group of people who say to you, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What if you did it this way? All of a sudden you're like, oh, that's cool. I never thought of that. The sharing, I think, of best practices is crucial, that you are sharing your knowledge, your skill, your experience with each other so that you really can shorten the learning curve. Say that you are a group of regional bank managers and you're all doing the same job, but you're all isolated because you're all in your own regional bank, right? Imagine if someone could come to the hot seat and say, I'm having a problem with this type of situation. And two other regional bank managers, oh, we've had that situation. Let me tell you how we've solved it. And just instead of having to try to solve it 10 different ways, and each time it fails until you finally figure out the way that works, why not ask someone who's already done it, right? As I talked about earlier, the action planning, the accountability is really important, that the group is going to ask you to set goals and it's going to say, okay, great, that's a big picture goal, but how are you going to get to that goal? How are you going to create the outcome that you're looking for? What are specific steps and specific resources you need to get there? And so even if it's a fitness and health mastermind group, it's like, okay, you want to lose 30 pounds, specifically, what do you have to do every week to make that happen? And then, of course, did you do it that week? You know, and as part of the action planning and the setting of goals, along the way, we have to make pretty big decisions about what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, who we're going to do it with, why we're doing it. And we have all these options and all these different ways of doing things, but we need to really make better decisions, or at least to say, well, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Does this make sense? And so getting help with decision making is a big piece of mastermind groups. The emotional support, both the encouragement when you're really trying for something and it's maybe a little hard to get to your goal, that the group is there to support you and encourage you, to applaud you when you've reached a big milestone or a big goal, to support you also when you hit a stumbling block, when you trip and fall and you're like, oh, I'm never going to get to this goal. They're like, okay, keep trying. You know, we understand, we have all hit the brick wall, and this is how you do that. I think what happens is when you get those first 6 things, your level of confidence in yourself increases. You're like, I am making good decisions. My ideas are sound. I am open to ideas and advice from other people. I'm trying things and they're working, and I feel good about that. And that's a big deal when you have a big change you want to make in your life. You want to feel sure of yourself, that what you're doing is the right thing and that you're capable of doing it. Overall, of course, the real benefit is you're going to make real progress. Whatever it is you're trying to create in your life, whatever dream you have, or whatever you're trying to get less of, you know, like it's like I want more vibrancy and health, and I want less weight, you know, that whatever it is, you're going to actually see progress. You're going to see things moving forward. The other thing I think, especially right now because of COVID, is we're all feeling isolated. The interesting thing is 2 years ago, before COVID, so many people told me they were feeling isolated. They felt like they were alone in what it is they were trying to create. I'll give you an example. I work a lot with small business owners and especially solo entrepreneurs. They're like, I work by myself. Maybe they have an assistant, but they don't really get to talk to a lot of other business owners in any real depth very often. And so knowing you're not alone in your goal, knowing you're not alone in the profession that you're in, knowing there are others out there who are just as eager to achieve goals as you are, and that they want to get together with you. And it's not just picking their brains, but them picking your brains too, and you supporting them and you sharing with them. So it's an even relationship where you're both asking for help and you're giving help. And I think that really creates this sense of community. And we're so desperate for that right now. We need to feel like we're around people who really will understand us and understand the goals we're trying to achieve, because they want something similar. The other thing I love about mastermind groups is these aha moments you have, these moments of clarity where you're like, I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what I want out of life. I know exactly what might hold me back. I've got a plan for figuring that out. I know exactly what my milestones are. I know exactly what my projects are. Wouldn't that be great to have that certainty and that clarity, not just about the actions that you need to do, but about what it is you want and what's most important. Because whatever we're trying to create in our life, it has to reflect our values, our personal values, who we are as a human being. And when you have clarity about your values and your vision of what it is you're trying to create in your life, then it's easy to make decisions. Then it's easy to move forward. And as always, in a group like this, you're going to grow as a human being. You have potential inside of you that is untapped. There are places where you can grow as a human being. And so a mastermind group is going to ask you to grow and to try new things and to change maybe perhaps the way you think about things or what you believe is possible, and help you to get to that next level so that you can be as successful as you want to be. So it's interesting because people ask me, well, is a mastermind group sort of like a class? I mean, a bunch of people get together, or is it like a Q&A call, And it's not. And the reason is because in a class or in a consulting group or a mentoring group, you have a leader, a mentor who is perceived as being the expert. And in a class, of course, they teach and you listen, and it's rather passive on the part of the students. And in like a consulting group or a mentoring group, usually what happens is one person asks a question, the teacher or the mentor answers that question, and the other people just listen. But in a mastermind group, everyone is coaching each other, everyone's mentoring each other, everyone is teaching each other. And so it's much more democratic, and it's much more intense than a classroom kind of a situation. But people, question, well, how is it different? It's like, okay, in a classroom situation or in a mentoring group, it's one expert to the audience, and in a mastermind group, everyone's in it together. So whether you are creating a mastermind group or whether you're joining a mastermind group, you need to be thinking about what are the components of a mastermind group? How do I know it's the right group for me? Or how do I know I'm creating the right group for me or for my audience? So let's walk through that. And again, like I said earlier, wear two hats with this. Listen to what I'm talking about in terms of if you want to be a member of a group, and also if you want to start a group yourself for you and your peers, for you and your neighbors, for you and your clients, whoever you would like to create a group for. So the first thing, of course, you need to do is think about who is your group for, and what is it that they have in common. Remember, I told you earlier, it's sort of like your personal board of directors. Sometimes people call a mastermind group a peer advisory board, and the word peer is really important. So what kind of people would you like to gather with? What would they have in common with you that would make them your peers? Are they all female business owners? Are they all mid-level managers? Are they all people looking for health and wellness? What is it about them that makes them similar enough that they'd want to be together in a mastermind group? So think about not just what the topic of the mastermind group is, what the niche for the mastermind group is. Also think about what makes the best members. So certainly it's, their peers, they have something in common. So you might say, well, I want to create a mastermind group for small business owners. It's like, okay, but do people who have been a small business owner for 20 years really want to be in a mastermind group with people who've been in business less than 1 year? So it's not just that they have the same topic, but they're kind of in the same place with it. So a person who is interested in health and wellness and is running marathons probably doesn't want to be in the same mastermind group with someone who's just getting started. They want to talk to people who have their experiences or can share with them about experiences. So you're looking for not only topic, but skill and experience level. You also want to really have people in your mastermind group who have a positive mental attitude. You cannot have people in your mastermind group who are negative, who just think everything is wrong in the world and nothing will ever go right for them, and they're not capable of creating change in their life. They're just going to bring the group down. So you're really looking for people who are enthusiastic, who are so motivated to create success in their life. They're so motivated maybe to to finally get a handle on work-life balance. Maybe they're trying to get all their finances in a row. Maybe they're getting ready to retire and they all want to talk about how do you plan that out. Whatever the topic is, they have to want to create success and they have to have the attitude for it. With the knowledge, of course, that, sometimes we do hit brick walls and stumbling blocks along the way. But the idea is you're looking for members who say, okay, I've had a bad day, or I've had a bad week, a bad month, but that doesn't define who I am. I think that I can probably overcome this. I just don't really know how. Okay. So you're kind of looking for those people who have hope about the future, not people who just think everything's wrong, because that's not going to be supportive in a group like this. And because you want really motivated people, you want people who want to reach or exceed their goals, because then they're going to motivate each other and keep each other moving forward. And so really think about it both from a very practical perspective and also kind of from a mindset perspective. If you could create your dream team of the best people that you would love to have a consistent meeting with, let's just say once a month, who would they be? So when we are looking at who are the best members, either when you're joining a group, the kind of people you're looking to join, or you're looking to create a mastermind group yourself, it does help if they're not only willing to create an action plan, but they're actually willing to get into action. I know you've met many people in your life who have a whole bunch of ideas and all they ever do is talk about their ideas, but they never do anything about it. Well, in a mastermind group, the doing part of it is critical, because you're not going to ever get to success if you don't take action. And so that action planning and accountability and getting into action is critical. So you want people who are doing things and not just talking about things. And I think you've met people like that. Sometimes you talk to people and they're like, they keep talking about the same dream they have, but in the past 3 years, I haven't seen them do anything about it. That person isn't going to be right for a mastermind group. Now, we talked about this earlier, that in a mastermind group, you are there to receive help and guidance and feedback, but you're also there to give it as well. So you want to find a group where the people in the group want to do both equally. You can't be in a mastermind group when everyone's selfish and they're like, pay attention to me, help me with my problem. But when it's time to help with your problem, they don't say a word. I mean, that's not going to work. Everyone has to be willing to share and help each other. And the commitment piece is important, because I encourage you to think about either joining a mastermind group or starting a mastermind group that has at minimum 6 meetings. So they have to be willing to commit to showing up for every meeting, because it takes time to make change in your life. A one-time meeting probably isn't going to do much, at least for the long term. It might help solve immediate problems, but it's not going to help with long-term action planning and solving of problems that crop up in the future. And so you want a group of people that are going to commit to showing up, commit to participating equally, commit to each other. Now, you think, 6 meetings, let's just say we meet once a month, that's 6 months, that's doable. I have run many mastermind groups. One mastermind group, we met once a month, every month, everybody showed up for 9 years. So we're talking a long commitment some people will make. I'm running a mastermind group now. We've been running it for 6 years. So you need to be thinking about, how long do you want to commit to being in a mastermind group, or if you're going to create a mastermind group, what is the first commitment you're going to ask them to make? And then, from there, can they renew and stuff like that? A mastermind group has to be a place where it's private, where the conversations that happen in the mastermind group meetings stay in the mastermind group meeting. So that confidentiality, that privacy, that respect of each other has to be there. And so if you've got a person who just loves to gossip about everybody, they are not good for a mastermind group, because they won't be able to keep the privacy that's really required. Because in a mastermind group, imagine when you get to really know these people, you develop a really high level of trust. You're going to tell them what's really going on in your world, and you want to know that they're going to hold that in confidence, and they're not going to tell other people that you're struggling somewhere. And then, of course, you want people who are open-minded. They need to be willing to hear different ideas and different viewpoints. If you have a person who's a know-it-all, who feels like they don't need to hear anything from anybody else, and know exactly how to do everything, they're not good for a mastermind group because they have a closed mind about what's possible. And so we're looking for people who say, yeah, I have a lot to share and I have a lot to learn. And they're just honest about it, because I think we all do. None of us knows everything, right? So let's talk a little bit about the types of groups that you might do. So as an example, it can be very large picture, or it can be extremely narrow. So it could be, a group of C-suite executives could meet together. People who are CEOs of nonprofits could meet together. People who have less than 5 years in business could meet together. Or then you can really narrow it down. A group of restaurant owners, a group of people who want to use social media more effectively for marketing, people who want to create a mastermind group around a particular book that they all love. My very first mastermind group that I created was around the 7 Habits book by Stephen Covey. And so maybe there's like a book, you say, I want to do what's in this book, and I want a group of people who want to do it too. So we'll all do it together. That we're actually going to apply what we learned in the book and put it into our lives. And that was exactly why I started my 7 Habits mastermind group, was because I wanted to put 7 habits into my life, and I wanted people who wanted it too. Maybe it's a group of people who want to become professional speakers, whether they're small business owners already, or whether they're experts in their field and their employees within an organization. I was talking to a woman physician yesterday, and she said every teaching hospital in the country has an innovation hub where they encourage their physicians to innovate and have ideas and get those ideas out there. Imagine if you had a group for those people. So you can imagine that you can go really narrow with the type of group you choose, or you can be very broad, whatever is really best for you and best for the group as a whole. So how big should the group be? I always tell people, it's like, well, it depends. And so it depends on the math, if that makes sense. How long are your meetings? Because if you're going to have a mastermind group where every member gets to be in their own private hot seat in every meeting, how many of those hot seats can you do? So as an example, I run a mastermind group right now. Our meetings are 2 hours. We have 5 or 6 people because our hot seats are 20 minutes each. So when you just do the math, you realize we only have a certain amount of time, therefore 6 people is appropriate. If you're going to do 15-minute hot seats, you could have more people. You could have 8 people. If you decide that people are going to be in the hot seat every other meeting, not every meeting, then you could have 16 people, 8 in the hot seat in the first meeting, 8 in the hot seat the next meeting, and you just rotate. So all of these decisions that you have to make about the group that you're going to join or the group that you're going to create come down to the math of it. And so when you answer these first 3 questions, it helps you. The problem that I have is that sometimes people say, well, we'll meet every other week. We'll have 16 people in our group. We'll meet every other week and we'll rotate it. And so my problem that I see come up is that when people are not going to be in that hot seat that week, do they not show up for the meeting? So one of the decisions you have to make if you're going to create a group, or one of the things you want to ask when you're going to join a group is, do I have to commit to showing up for every meeting? Typically, a mastermind group says, yes, you have to show up for every meeting. We understand that emergencies happen, but unless it's like a pre-planned vacation and you can't, you're not going to move it, or someone's bleeding, that you're supposed to show up. And like I said, that group that met every other month, every month for 9 years, I would say 90% of the time, everybody showed up. They just put it on their calendar and they worked their calendar around it. And then barring vacations and emergencies, that was just what they did. And we met once a month, so it wasn't like a big commitment, and they knew when those meetings were going to be. So you have a couple choices about where to meet. Now, it used to be that people were doing a lot of in-person mastermind groups. That's scaled back, of course, because of COVID. I have been running my mastermind groups virtually since 2001. I'm dating myself here. Back in 2001, we were running mastermind groups through telephone, right? I don't know if you guys remember that. It's a long time ago. And then, of course, we switched over to Zoom. but I've run my mastermind groups almost completely virtually for 20 years. Other people like to do it in person. Of course, it limits the scope of the mastermind group. You might say, well, I want to be in an in-person mastermind group and I want to meet women who are from the Philadelphia area. And so you might choose an in-person group, or you might say, I really want to work with a specific kind of people. I don't care where they are, like in the United States or in the world. They just have to have this thing in common. And so the more unique mastermind group you're looking for, the more likely it's going to end up being virtual. Now, what sometimes people do is they do a hybrid mastermind group. They meet maybe once a quarter in person, and everyone comes to Florida or everyone goes to Las Vegas or whatever. And then the meetings in between are virtual meetings. So they do both. I've also seen meetings where some of the people are in person in a conference room, seated 6 feet apart, right? And then up on the screen are the rest of the people who are dialing in through Zoom. And so the meeting itself is hybrid. Some are local and some are up on the screen. Either way is fine. And they're all really effective. There is no difference. I can tell you from 20 years experience, there's no difference between an in-person mastermind group and a virtual mastermind group. I know it sounds crazy, but the facilitator, the person who is running the group, needs to be skilled in bringing that group together. It's a little harder to do that virtually, but it's not impossible. You just have to know what you're doing, right? So let's talk about the role of the person who's running the group. I call them the mastermind group facilitator, and they have a particular job to do in these meetings and between meetings. And so initially, when you're thinking about the facilitator, you can either choose, you yourself will be the facilitator, or someone already is a facilitator of a group that you want to join. If you want to put together a group of your own peers, then you can either say, okay, this one person is going to be the facilitator every meeting, or they're going to take turns. A different person each meeting. Everyone takes some responsibility to take this role. So it just depends on where you are and what you're trying to create. But the job of the facilitator is that they are the designer of the group. All those decisions that we talked about earlier about how long are meetings and are people in the hot seat in every meeting, that's the facilitator's job, to make that decision and to design the group and to figure out the dates for the group and all that kind of administrative stuff. But it's much more than that. It's about facilitating the conversation, and it's about bringing the group together as a group and dealing with all the group dynamics. So the facilitator has to want to help other people succeed, and they have to be skilled enough to know how to help other people succeed, even when the other people get stuck. So one of your jobs as a facilitator is to ask thought-provoking questions. We call them clarifying questions that bring additional information into the conversation that was unsaid. So you might be in a meeting, and I know you've probably had this in your real life experience. You're talking to someone and you're going on and on about their situation, and in your head you're going, why aren't they stating the obvious? Why are they avoiding talking about this one topic when it's so clear to me that that's got to be part of this? So, you're a business owner, you're talking with one of your business friends. She says she's having a hard time marketing. She's tried all these techniques and no one wants to buy from her. She wants to talk with you about marketing techniques, and you're going, what do you mean no one wants to buy from you? So asking those kind of questions takes the conversation deeper and helps to uncover things that were hidden before. And so the facilitator has to be really good at identifying those thought-provoking questions and getting them out in the open. The other thing is that part of your job is not just for you to be active listening, but for you to teach your members how to do active listening, to really, really, really pay attention to what people are saying in the meeting, and not to be checking your phone or zoning out, because when you do active listening, when you do deep listening, you hear what's being said and you hear what's not being said. You're also listening for patterns. And by that, I mean, so you're talking, you have a mastermind group and a person's talking about their marketing and people won't buy from them. And every meeting, she says something similar to that. Well, you're looking for that trend to say, this is really a problem. This isn't just a one-time, I'm confused why people didn't buy from me once. This is an ongoing problem. We have to solve that problem. Whatever the surface problem is she brings to her hot seat, she keeps mentioning that people won't buy from her. Let's solve that problem. And so by active listening, we can see that trend, and then we can work with it. Because you are creating trust and rapport among your members. Remember that whole confidentiality thing? People have to be willing to be vulnerable in a mastermind group and say what's really going on in their world. And the facilitator creates that environment of trust and rapport among the members, and it allows them to take the conversation deeper, and allows people to really go to a place that's very vulnerable and say, here's my real concern about what's going on in my life. Here's really what I think is holding me back. And so creating that trust, taking the conversation deeper, is a skill that the facilitator needs to have. If they allow everything to stay on the surface, the mastermind group's not going to be successful. The other thing is that they need to be able to handle the flow of the conversation. So have you ever, I know you know this, have you ever been in a conversation with a person who talks too much? Or in a group situation where you have one person who dominates the conversation and you can't get a word in edgewise because you swear they never take a breath, right? So what we're looking for is the facilitator to manage the balance of conversation in the meeting so that every voice is heard, and to bring forward the person who's quiet, or to bring forward the person who doesn't agree and is holding back because they don't agree with what the consensus of the group is, but they have a good idea. And so the facilitator brings forward that conversation. And part of that's that building of trust, that the people in the group feel that they can say something that maybe no one will agree with, but they're going to say it anyway, because that's the nature of the group, right? The other piece, of course, is that the facilitator is deeply involved with, well, what are the action plans of the members? How are they doing on those? Are they getting stuck? Are they moving forward? And so the facilitator is paying attention to the trajectory of your action plan. And so if you're going to join a mastermind group and they're not going to pay attention to what you say you're going to work on, or whether you actually did it or not, it may not be the right group for you. Now, some people love that kind of accountability because it keeps them focused. Other people hate it because it requires them to take action when they're not really ready to. So you have to decide how much accountability you really are looking for if you're going to be joining a mastermind group or creating a mastermind group. Because problems can happen in mastermind groups, just like with any group, people who talk too much, people who don't take action, people who won't talk in the group about what's really going on, people who don't get along with each other in the group. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could come up in any kind of group situation. And so creating some group guidelines, and it's a facilitator's job to have that, some sort of rules for the way we're going to behave in the group, and what the purpose of the group is, and what our shared values are. And so I think it's the facilitator's job to do that, primarily because it mitigates problems in advance. If you tell them, we meet, you have to show up on time, you have to show up for every meeting, you can't have your phone out or your email up or anything like that, you got to be paying attention to what's going on. You have to participate equally. So all these kind of rules about how the group works means that those things shouldn't be problems later on. And so you're telling them the rules of the road in advance. The interesting thing about the facilitator is they're really at two levels. So they're at what I call the ground floor level. They're in the meeting, paying attention to what's happening, but they're also at that 10,000 foot level, looking down at the group and saying, how is the group working together? How is the relationship among all the members? How is the conversation among all the members? And then they're looking at from the top down at the individual people. How is Mary doing? How is Susan doing? How is Gladys doing? And keeping track of all of that. There's a lot of moving pieces that the facilitator pays attention to. And so you kind of bake that into the agenda for your mastermind group meetings so that all of these things you can pay attention to. And you take really super good notes too. So the facilitator is constantly taking notes about what's going on. And so let's talk about how these mastermind groups are structured. What does the meeting look like? And the way that I look at it is you could have a mastermind group, which is really just hot seats. Everyone gets a chance to be in the hot seat. They bring their problem or their question to the group brainstorms, you move on to the next person. You could decide that you want to do a mastermind group like we talked about earlier, where everyone's going to read a book together. I don't know, pick a book on leadership, pick a book on finance, pick a book on parenting, pick a book on marketing. It doesn't matter what the topic is, but you're all going to get through this book together. You can do a mastermind group where each meeting has a predetermined topic. Today's meeting, we're going to talk about nutrition, and every hot seat's about how you're doing with your nutrition. What are your plans for your nutrition? And then the next month we pick another health and fitness topic, and that's the topic. That gives some structure to it, but it also means that if the person in the hot seat is not having a problem with nutrition, then they don't really have anything to say for their hot seat. But if you are doing like a class or something that you're teaching them, and then you run the mastermind group to help them implement what they learned in your class, then that might work really well. You could even bring in guest speakers. So I know some mastermind groups are full-day mastermind group meetings. The first half of the meeting is a guest speaker on a topic of importance to everybody in the group, kind of like a little training session, or the facilitator teaches a segment at the beginning of the meeting. And then the afternoon is all brainstorming and masterminding. And so maybe you do something like that. I mean, there's lots of different things that you could do inside of your meetings to make them interesting. And so the next decision you have to make, especially if you're creating mastermind groups, is what is the model of the mastermind group? Which audience segment is it for? Is it an internal mastermind group, maybe for all of our employees, or is it an external mastermind group? I'm opening it up to the general public. So those are the two kind of mastermind groups. You've got internal mastermind groups and external mastermind groups. So the internal mastermind group, so let's talk about the external mastermind group first. So the external mastermind group is you're offering the mastermind group to the general public, or you're joining a mastermind group that is open to the general public, and it's on whatever topic is of interest to you. So you can offer a mastermind group like that, or you can join a mastermind group like that, and just Google mastermind group and you'll find the mastermind groups that are out there. So the second kind of external mastermind group is it's still open to the general public. These people aren't connected to each other, but they're connected to you in some way. So I'll give you an example. There's a women's business professional group up in Canada, and they have like a building and a spa and a restaurant. It's really wonderful. They offer their members to be in a mastermind group. Now, those members come from all over Canada, so it's not like all connected to each other, but you have to be a member of the club before you can be a member of the mastermind group. And so something like that can work. And so, maybe you could form a mastermind group from your peers in the chamber or something like that, Then for the internal mastermind groups, think about something like, say that you work in a corporation and you have a leadership program. You could run a mastermind group for the leaders in that program. Say that you are a regional bank manager. Your bank could run mastermind groups for all the regional branch managers or the bank managers, because they have something in common, but they're all employees of the same group. So you can think about, maybe it's just a subset of people in your organization. It's all the C-suite level people or all the director level people in your organization. If you're a business owner, do you teach classes? And could you run a mastermind group for people who are in your classes? Or if you're a consultant and you have clients, could you run a mastermind group for your clients? Or if you're a business owner and you have customers, perhaps they buy a service or a product for you, would there be any logical reason to bring together your customers on a consistent basis to help them and kind of extend how you work with them beyond the product or service that you offer. So you can think that there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do this. And so the idea here is you really want to be as creative as possible. You want to create a mastermind group, or you want to join a mastermind group that fits your needs and that is going to help you to create whatever it is you're trying to create in your life. And all of us have something we want to change, at least one thing we want to change in our life. We have a goal we're going after, or we're trying to solve a really big problem. And would a mastermind group be the right answer for you? So it's something to think about. And I'd like to see if we can open it up for questions now. Let's see, do I have my participant list open? I think you should be able to raise your hand. And Wendy, I don't know if you can unmute people or anything like that, but if anybody has a question, if you could just use the raise your hand button. I think it's under the participants section, and see if we have any questions today about mastermind groups. And I don't know if I can see them, Wendy. You have to tell me whether you can see them.
Jean Wider had a group, or a question for the group. Are you able to visit groups to get a feel for if that group is right for you? Are groups looking for new members, or would I need to start with a new group in the beginning?
Okay, so that's a good question. So how do you know a group is right for you? Each facilitator chooses whether they let guests come into the group. Now think about it for a moment from the existing members. On one hand, they're talking about really personal stuff. To have a person from the outside come in for one meeting and then maybe not join the group, are they going to hold back and not really talk about what they need to talk about because they have an outsider coming into the group? On the other hand, would it help the group to get to know this person, to see whether that person, the new person, is a good fit for the existing group? And so the facilitator usually decides that. A lot of times what facilitators do is they'll run something like a free mastermind group meeting where you get to know the people, but it's separate from the normal meeting, so that the privacy concern isn't there. If you start with a new group, then of course everyone's new, and you have to rely upon the facilitator to be good at vetting the members to make sure they're selecting good members. And that's just a skill the facilitator learns how to do, to find those people who are not only peers, who not only have the right mindset, but also have a common problem that the other people will probably help them solve, and has skill and knowledge and experience themselves to share with others. And so a good facilitator knows how to bring a group together. So
Karyn, can I jump in? I have a
Sure.
question about that. So do you feel that a facilitator needs to have maybe a small, almost executive team around them, or is it just one person, they're making all the rules, they're running the show?
Yeah, so it depends. So if it's a mastermind group the facilitator puts together, and maybe it's a paid mastermind group, they're charging their members to be members of the group, then they do set the rules, and they don't really need to have a bunch of people to help them make decisions. They make the decisions about what it is they want to do. If it's a group of people getting together and the facilitator role is like a volunteer role, then the decisions about how the group is formed and what new members we're looking for may be a conversation that everybody in the group has, because they are all peers. The facilitator was selected kind of at random because they just volunteered to do it, not because they were forming the group. So it kind of depends on who was forming that group to start with.
And I think another issue that I hear about often is when you've got a group like that and somebody's in the group and they're not participating the way the group was intended, how do you then move that person along?
No, just kidding.
Exactly.
Yeah, out you go.
Is there a better way?
Yeah. So here's the thing. So when you can't guarantee that everyone is going to be great for your group. I mean, when you're a facilitator, you're really super careful, and you learn how to interview people and how to make sure you think they're good. But you may find that over time, they haven't turned out the way you thought they were going to turn out. Maybe they're a lot more negative than you thought, or they're not taking any action, or they don't show up for meetings, or they don't pay, and you're like, okay, they have to go. And so typically we like to try to manage that in advance. So once we start seeing that there are problems in a mastermind group, the facilitator's role is to be in contact with that member and to talk about the situation. And so you've got to be good at having difficult conversations and say, look, every meeting you're 10 minutes late. That's not working for the group. We can't start 10 minutes late. We don't have time in our agenda for that to happen. And I'd like to ask you to show up on time. Sometimes they just don't fit. I'll give you an example. There was a woman, and it wasn't a fit problem. There was a woman in one of my mastermind groups, and she was doing really well, and then she got cancer. It's like, okay, what do you do? She's not going to be running her business for the next 3 months. She doesn't really want to come to meetings. And so I had to have a conversation with her about what is it you want to do? And in the end, she said, kind of put me on hold. I'll come back if I can, but replace me in the group. And in my case, I run 4 or 5 or 6 different mastermind groups. So I said, okay, when you come back, you might not be with the same group, but you're certainly welcome to come back. So, you kind of have to play with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very good.
Good. All right. Any other questions? And then some people are typing questions in the chat, which is great. So we can put them there as well. I'm just going to wait for a moment, see if anybody has a question in the chat. And if not, I think we can wrap up.
Really great information, Karyn.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a mastermind group.
I just think that we all need to be around other people who are like us, who really want to support us as we're trying to achieve what we want to achieve in life. And we have that with our friends. We have that with our family a little bit, but if I'm in a mastermind group, I'm a business owner. So if I'm in a mastermind group with other business owners and I say to them, I landed a $500,000 contract, they know what that means for me to get that contract. If I tell my mom and dad, they're like, oh, that's nice, sweetheart, but they don't really get it, Right. And so being around people who really understand you and can help you, I think is crucial.
So we do have a question. How do you handle competition within a professional group or in a group with similar professional interests? Great. Yeah. That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is you can't really have competitors in a mastermind group. It doesn't work because in a mastermind group, I need to be able to be honest and talk about what's going on in my world. If there's someone sitting next to me as my competitor that hears that I'm struggling, that's a problem. If I have a great, brilliant idea of what I'm going to do in my life and they steal that idea, that's not going to work either. So you really can't have competitors. So what I suggest is say that you are a financial planner, right? You really don't want to be in a group of financial planners. You want to be in a mixed group. Maybe there's a CPA in there, a financial planner, a business attorney, a business owner, and I don't know, an insurance person. And you have something in common. You all work with small business owners, or you all work with high net worth clients or whatever, but you're not competing with each other. And so part of this has to be that, you have to be able to have that privacy in a mastermind group. So does that make sense?
And we have a question from Connie Maurer. What is the best way to approach people with the idea of joining a group if they are involved with many networking groups?
So networking groups and mastermind groups are different. And I think there's some networking that happens in mastermind groups just by the nature of them. You're meeting with these same people every month for a year kind of a thing. But in a networking group, you meet people, you're trying to see if there's any connection and that you can share leads with each other and so forth, but you're not really like helping each other solve business problems. And so if you know people who are in networking groups, say you're in a group with a bunch of BNI people, are there people in that BNI group that you're feeling that you want to have deeper conversations with them? They're really interesting. They have great ideas, and there's just not enough time in a BNI meeting to explore those ideas. Then I would just approach them and say, hey, we're in BNI together, or we're in, the National Speakers Association together. I'm looking to put together a group of people who are like us. And, would you be open to having a conversation around that? And just have a conversation, tell them what a mastermind group is, tell them what you're looking for from a group, and see whether they have an interest. You can always do a very short-term mastermind group. It's like, well, let's just do a test. Let's do 3 meetings and see how we get along. You don't have to make a big, 1 year or 2 year or 3 year commitment with each other. Just, let's do a few meetings. Let's see how it works out. So, but we know so many people in our professional networks, and I'm sure there are people in those networks you're like, I would love to get to know them better. And so why not create a group with the people that you already know? Same thing, you might know coworkers, you might know people at your gym, you might know, you're in a lot of groups already. Is there anybody in those groups you're like, I think that these people should kind of band together and help each other? Right. Any other questions? I'm looking at the chat box.
Yeah, and I think we are just about out of time.
I think we are too. So thank you for having me. If there's anything I can do to help anybody, our website is thesuccessalliance.com.
Yes, and if anybody has any questions, can't get in touch with Karyn, reach out to the chamber and we can help you with that. All right, thanks so much, Karyn. Thank you.
Thanks. Take good care. Bye, everybody.